Ah, the good old days. The good old days of gaming. Now, I bet you're expecting something like, when I was a kid, I had to walk to school in the snow, uphill, both ways. No, it wasn't that bad, except if you include life before Wi-Fi.
You wouldn't match, by a chance, would you?
And trust me, the OG gamers know exactly what I'm talking about. Welcome back to The Gamer. Old school gaming presented its fair share of difficulties. Sure, gaming became uber popular by the 80s and 90s, but it still took a while for technology to make things easy on us. Before the days of the Red Ring of Death, original gamers had a whole host of problems to deal with, and this video is going to go into some of the main and most painful ones. So, without further ado, here are 10 real hardships only original gamers will understand. The classic struggle move that separates old school gamers from the new. There's no way we could have a list like this without mentioning blowing. That came out wrong. Anyways, way before Nintendo had even dreamed of moving their games onto discs, we were burdened with the standard glitchy cartridges. You didn't push it in all the way? Sorry, the game isn't working. Pushing it at a slightly weird angle? Nope, no game for you. If you're like me, after doing this about 100 times, you probably had a friend or family member demonstrate the move to end all clutch moves. Removing the faulty cartridge, flipping it upside down, and blowing into that sucker with all your might. I mean, how on earth was that supposed to work? And just a FYI for our younger viewers, this was the old school equivalent of, have you tried turning it off and back on again? They probably put it back into the system with authority, and voila, the game started right up. Was this black magic? A supernatural gift from the great beyond? Well, probably not. We know now that blowing into your games was actually a bad thing. All that adolescent saliva from your huffing and puffing actually built up moisture inside the game, which is obviously not what you want. It's actually a lot more likely that the confident push of the cartridge back into your system is what aligned the game properly and allowed it to finally work. But hey, why kill the magic, right? Yes, back before the days of online play as a default, the only real way to get any gaming in with your buddies was to show up in person with an extra controller in tow. And I'll explain why in just a sec. Basically, if you're hanging out somewhere else, that means a separate trip home to grab the gear. Trust me, you really needed to grab your own. But what if you were planning to do some PC gaming? Well then, that presented a whole host of problems itself. You were going to need to snag your own likely desktop computer and at least a rudimentary knowledge of networking. Honestly, this is probably how a lot of IT professionals got their start in the business. You could risk trying to play online, but internet connections were spotty at best back in the day. And you also ran the risk of a family member picking up the phone and ruining the entire thing. Oh, that noise. But that's a problem for another day. Back to the controllers. What if you didn't have time to get your own from home? Say you wanted to sleep over at a friend's house and actually forgot your controller. Well then, you were probably stuck with one of these. The junky leftover controllers are a thing of legend in the gaming community, and not in a good way. Spilled drinks, stuck buttons, and mysterious sticky residues covered these terrible monstrosities, and getting paired with one almost guaranteed a bad time. And if you have to use one during a fighting game, good luck. It was like cranking the difficulty to 10 before you even began. Plus, these controllers were not wireless. You could easily rip the whole console off the TV stand and reset the system and lose your spot, especially if you were losing, which, let's be honest, you probably were. Now you're out not only a victory, but also the price of a television. Thanks a lot, Mad Cat. Speaking of broken controllers, how about the button mashers of the world? This was probably how most of the throwaway controllers got that way, smashing the same moves over and over again during fighting games, just hoping for the win. And to that point, how did these guys win? It was likely the combination of getting frustrated and bored of seeing the same move over and over again, mixed with just wanting the whole thing to end. I once got kicked out of one of my friends' houses for button mashing during Mortal Kombat, and I never made that mistake again. But in retrospect, that probably wasn't a very good friend, huh? I digress. Button mashing was a pretty common thing to experience. There wasn't that big of a focus yet on skills and precision, and for a lot of kids, it may have been their first time ever playing that particular game. We know that button mashing does of course still happen today, but back in the day, it seemed to be everywhere you looked. They lived among us in great numbers, and there was nothing we could do about it. All kidding aside, mashing your way to a win is definitely not the way to go, and takes a lot of fun out of fighting games. So, if you're watching this video and are still a button masher, this is your official intervention. Come on, man. Imagine a world with both no cloud storage and no hard drive space. No, this isn't some zombie-ridden post-apocalyptic nightmare. It was the world of console gaming when memory cards were king. Actually, come to think of it, there were zombies involved after all. What's up, Resident Evil? Anyways, memory cards threw you for a loop in multiple ways. First of all, they started off with very little storage space. I remember several times having to make a terrible choice. Which game save would I delete to make room for my new playthrough? Will I rent this particular video game again, or is it safe to get rid of the save? For a lot of people, this was probably their first introduction into consequence-based decision making. We sometimes take gaming for granted, but it's obvious it forces us to learn major life skills, right? I'm only half joking, but dealing with memory card space issues was a stressful time for sure. And that's not even to mention playing your game at a friend's house and not having a memory card with you. They were a necessary evil, of course, and they also revolutionized the way saves were stored. So they aren't gonna face too much hate on this video. But our next entry, however, is going to get our full and complete wrath. Yes, this is petty, but what a serious waste of money. It would be insane to spend too much time on this entry, but non-rechargeable batteries for handheld systems were a nightmare that deserves at least a very quick rant. What happens when they die after only a few hours? Well, you gotta go outside, into the world, and buy more. You can't afford it or you don't have the time? Sorry, but you're officially screwed. That is, unless you want to plug the tiny power cable into an outlet and game with your face about 2 inches from the wall. But that pretty much defeats the purpose of portable gaming, doesn't it? So, you had to be prepared to lose all your progress when the power goes out, and have the world's heaviest garbage can full of dead batteries. And that's an appropriate spot for them too, because non-rechargeable batteries are straight trash. Rant over. Imagine this, if you will. It's a nice summer day, you just ate a Pop-Tart and sat down for an incredible day of gaming. And not after even 10 minutes of playing, a little brother or cousin pops their head into the room and says, "Mom says it's my turn to play." Now, maybe your situation didn't play out exactly like this, but having a younger gamer encroach on your gaming time was a rite of passage, both frustrating and agonizing. If they were a lot younger though, you might have pulled off this official pro gamer move. Simply handing them the Player 2 controller and then unplugging it. It's a win-win really. You get to keep playing and they think they're getting in big kid gaming time. Just don't let anyone catch you pulling this move, or you might end up grounded from gaming for a very long time. Even worse than being grounded from playing? Not being able to play because of a jacked up game disc. A scratched CD just staring you in the face, seemingly beckoning you to play. You pop it in, only to have it start to boot up like normal, and then boom, a disk read error. We like to complain a lot about downloading games these days, but at least we know that the game will start up and be playable. Of course, there used to be certain ways of combating this issue that were pretty hit or miss. You could pull the old toothpaste trick, smearing toothpaste into the scratches and hoping it would harden in the divots and skip right over the damaged parts. I do feel obligated to mention that the success rate of this move was pretty low. If you were a bit more gross and or daring, you could always grab the disc and give it a big lick. How covering a video game in spit improved the chances of a smooth playthrough, I have no idea. But I've definitely watched this go down on more than one occasion. And what's with gamers ruining games with their spit? First the cartridges, and now this. Let's just move on before anything else gross has to be mentioned. Yes, unbeatable levels have gotten a little more popular in modern days. Dark Souls immediately comes to mind, but some OG gamers had levels that were beyond frustrating. Specifically, a few you may remember were the Water Temple in Ocarina of Time and the Dam level in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What's with hard levels in water? One of the more famous levels that I personally played for hours and hours was the Turbo Tunnel from Battletoads on the NES. And by the way, the Pawn Stars guys still don't have a copy, so don't ask. There actually is a reasonable explanation for the unbeatable levels though. Games used to be a lot harder in general because there was less space on the cartridges, meaning they had to make the games more difficult so they would last longer. Get more bang for your buck. This is totally understandable, but ended up leading to our next entry on the list. Hey, you weren't gonna just take unbeatable levels sitting down, right? Oh no, you were gonna game the system and cheat your way past them, even if it took all day. And sometimes, it did take all day to do it. Cheat codes were advertised by your peers as a way to make things easier and more fun. But half the time, it took 20 minutes just to enter in the stupid things correctly. There have been years taken off my life, trying to put in a fatality just right during Mortal Kombat. There was of course the famous Konami code, up up, down down, left right, BA start. One of the only easy ones to remember, hence it getting burned into the minds of thousands of OG gamers to this day. And of course, you could always rent a Game Genie, but those usually cost an arm and a leg. And for a lot of households, you were lucky to rent one video game, let alone a cheating system to go along with it. And that trip to rent or buy games takes us to our final entry on the list. That's right, just like the non-rechargeable batteries, you actually had to get up off your butt and go to a store. What madness is this? No mobile games to tide you over on the trip, and no reliable internet. It's hard to stress this enough, but the lack of fast internet made all the difference for gamers and made everything very pedestrian. There were no game trailers to check out after just a click, and definitely no available demos to try. It was guesswork, plain and simple. And back then, there were a lot of bad games. Imagine getting all worked up to buy or rent a new game and seeing a cover that looked amazing. Getting home, popping it in, turning on the power, and then getting slapped in the face with a dud of a game. Unfortunately, all too common a reality for the original gamer. We don't want to sound like an old man yelling at the clouds or telling those back in my day stories, but things truly were a lot different a few short years ago. And just think, 5 or 10 years from now, we'll be talking about how tough things were today. Well, that about wraps this video up. What do you think? Can you relate to these old school gamer moments? And did we miss any on the list? Let us know down in the comment section. And before you go, if you liked the video, do me a favor and give it a big thumbs up. And be sure to hit that subscribe button too, so you don't miss any of the new videos from TheGamer. Until next time, thanks for watching.